So let's jump right in. How do you build a city of God when you've basically just been kicked out of your last home? I mean, that's pretty much the question facing the early Latter-day Saints back in 1841. And they get this revelation, Doctrine and Covenants section 124, that acts as a spiritual blueprint for their new city. And what it reveals is just this profound plan for turning a literal swamp into a sanctuary, a place they would come to call Nauvoo the Beautiful.
To really get Nauvoo, you have to understand what happened in Missouri first. The Saints had just been through one of the absolute hardest times in their history. They were refugees, fleeing a state-sanctioned extermination order. Can you even imagine that? The governor of a state telling people to either drive you out or kill you. They were forced from their homes in the middle of winter, facing just unimaginable hardship. Joseph Smith himself was in prison, and his wife Emma had to flee with their kids, literally sewing the manuscript pages of his Bible translation into her clothes to keep them safe. These were truly desperate times.
So, after getting some much-needed help from the kind folks in Quincy, Illinois, the Saints were finally able to buy some land. But it was land nobody else wanted. The area was ironically called Commerce, but it was really just a nasty, mosquito-infested swamp. The only commerce happening there was the commerce of disease. Malaria and other sicknesses just tore through the camp. It was about as far from a promised land as you could possibly get.
And yet, in this just incredible act of faith, they renamed this swamp. They called it Nauvoo. Now, this is what's so cool about this. The name comes from a Hebrew word in the book of Isaiah, which says, "How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings." So see, they weren't describing what they saw with their eyes. They were declaring what they knew. Through faith, this place could become. It was a prophecy and a promise all wrapped up in one single word: beautiful.
Okay, so the city has its name. Now what? Well, the Lord gives them their first big assignment. And it's not what you think. It's not about digging ditches or building cabins. It's about thinking globally. He commands them to write what he calls a solemn proclamation, which is this bold message meant for the entire world.
And just look at the audacity here. I mean, these are backwoods farmers, refugees who just barely escaped an extermination order, and they're being told to write to kings, to presidents, to governors. They were supposed to invite the most powerful people on earth to come and help build their city. This wasn't a community hiding in fear. No way. This was a people with an unshakable confidence that they were building the kingdom of God, and they were not afraid to let the world know it.
So reaching out to the world, that was step one. The next command was all about building up their own community. Specifically, the Lord commanded them to build two main buildings in Nauvoo, two houses that would really define the character of their new, beautiful city.
And this is just a brilliant illustration of the two great commandments in action. On one side, you have the Nauvoo Temple, a sacred house for worship, for making covenants with God, and a place where he could literally come and dwell. And on the other side, you have the Nauvoo House, which was basically a hotel. But look at its purpose. It was meant to be a place of safety, where a weary traveler could not just rest, but contemplate the word of the Lord. It was a house of hospitality, designed to lead people to God. You've got worship and welcome going hand in hand.
But let's focus on the temple for a second, because there was a real sense of urgency here. The Lord made it crystal clear that this wasn't just another church building. It was absolutely essential for the continuation of the restoration itself. There were crucial things that could only be revealed inside its sacred walls.
And this was a really crucial point. See, while the saints had received priesthood authority, they hadn't yet received the fullness of it. So what does that mean? Well, it meant a greater endowment of power and knowledge, and brand new ordinances that had been hidden for centuries. The temple was the one designated place where God was going to reveal these things, where they could get a much deeper understanding of his plan.
And one of the very first of these restored ordinances was just a landmark moment in Christian theology: baptism for the dead. The idea was stunning, that the saving ordinance of baptism could be performed for your ancestors, for people who had passed on without the chance to receive it themselves. And the saints' reaction? It was immediate and overwhelming. They didn't sit around and debate it. They ran straight to the Mississippi River and started baptizing each other for their loved ones. The enthusiasm was just incredible.
This one doctrine so perfectly shows God's balance of justice and mercy. I mean, think about it. How could a just God condemn billions of his children who never even had a fair chance to hear the gospel? The answer is, he wouldn't. This revelation showed that the redeeming reach of Jesus Christ extends beyond the grave, offering salvation to everyone. It was just this profound expression of God's infinite love.
Now, this revelation wasn't just about buildings and doctrines. At its very core, it was about people. It was a call for individuals to rise up to their divine potential.
And this section gives us two powerful case studies in personal choice, all framed by one of the most powerful questions we can ever ask.
What if? I mean, seriously, just think about that question. What if God could use you to do something extraordinary? What if one simple idea could change the world? What if you had the potential to perform the very same miracles as Jesus Christ himself? In Nauvoo, this wasn't a hypothetical question. It was a direct invitation from God to specific people.
Let's take Sarah Granger Kimball. Picture this. Day after day, she's looking out her kitchen window, watching the temple construction, and she's just thinking, how can I help? And she gets a simple idea. Get some women together and sew shirts for the workers. That's it. So she talks to a friend, they gather 12 women in her home, and from that one small, contemplated act of service, the Relief Society was born, an organization that would grow to become one of the largest women's organizations in the entire world.
And then you have William Law, who was a counselor in the First Presidency, and the Lord offers him this breathtaking potential. He's promised he could heal the sick, cast out devils, and then comes this staggering question, and what if I will that he should raise the dead? Imagine being offered that kind of power, that kind of trust from God.
So you have two people, two what-if moments. Sarah embraced her idea, she acted on it, and her legacy of service blesses millions of people today. William Law, tragically, he ignored the counsel he was given. He ended up turning against Joseph Smith, and his legacy became entangled with the martyrdom. And this right here is the crucial point. Building a beautiful community isn't just about draining swamps and laying stones. It's about the individual choices we make every single day.
So, what does this story from a swampy riverbank in the 1840s mean for us today? Well, the legacy of Nauvoo isn't just in its restored historic buildings. It's in the principles it teaches us about building our own beautiful places. At the end of the day, the plan for Nauvoo was really a blueprint for our own lives. It teaches us to balance our worship for God with a radical welcome for other people. It shows us that small, simple acts of service can have a global impact, and it reminds us that our potential is only limited by our willingness to embrace God's what-ifs. These principles are absolutely timeless.
So that leaves us with the final question. The early saints turned a swamp into a sanctuary by first naming it beautiful and then living up to that name. So as you go about your week, in your family, in your community, in your own heart, what beautiful place are you building?